All right, we are back on the Get the Picture podcast. We got a great episode for you today. We're here with Charlia. She is a graduate from West Texas A&M University. She's on the board of Identification Systems Group, and she is the president of Diamond Business Services. Charlia, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Luke. How are you?
I am doing great. And you're calling in you're in Texas, right?
I'm in Amarillo, Texas, the big square part of the state up top.
That's awesome. We have taken many trips to Texas over the years for conferences, and so we're starting to get to know the state pretty well.
It's funny. Everybody thinks Texas, Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio. We're about 5 hours from any of that. And like Houston, we're like 12 and a half. So we're kind of up in the middle of nowhere. And we kind of like it up here.
Yeah, you got your own little corner up there.
That's right.
I guess it's a big
Exactly.
corner. Okay, so before we get into the questions, I like to do a game with my guests called Overrated, Underrated.
Okay.
And I'm going to give you a word or a phrase, and you have to tell me if it's overrated or underrated. Does that make sense? Cool. All right, first one, coffee.
Oh, majorly overrated. I'm not a coffee drinker.
Really? Okay.
No.
Do you drink tea or anything?
Diet Coke.
Diet Coke. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
An addict, I admit it.
No worries. Survivor, the TV show. Have you seen it?
I have seen it. I kind of go back and forth on different years and seasons. It's very interesting because modeling how people have to adapt in their environment and stuff. I love that part of it. It's a little dramatic, but I love that part of it.
It is dramatic. I've never watched it before until this year. My wife grew up watching it, and they have this 50th anniversary show.
Oh yeah.
And they've brought back all the best contestants from years past, and they're battling it out, in this season. So it's been a fun show for us to watch. So okay. The spring, like the season of spring.
Mm-hmm. Majorly overrated from an allergy standpoint because we're all dying up here. I love planting gardens and, working in my flower bed and that kind of thing. So that part of it I love.
Okay, cool. Do you do vegetables or?
No, flower bed.
Okay,
Yeah.
flower bed. Nice. I like it.
I'm not patient enough to do vegetables.
Yeah. My wife is a saint, and she is doing another vegetable garden this year. So we'll see how it goes. Cross our fingers. So every year. Okay, rebadges. Overrated or underrated?
I'm going to say underrated because what you can bring to an entity when you do a rebadge, whether it's, their current photo, changing out their logo if that's been changed, or if through attrition or through a buyout of other companies, people forget that little bitty badge is their billboard and the opportunity to promote their own company, much less make their employees look good and increase their security. To me, it's a win-win everywhere. But I also recognize that you have to have a plan in place to make it not be a complete whipping.
Mm-hmm. And I think so many organizations view it as, oh yeah, we'll just do a rebadge.
Yeah.
That'll be simple. But there's all these little details that have to get handled by somebody, or the rebadge doesn't go well. And I'm sure we'll get into that a little later. So, okay. One of the first question I love to ask my guests is, how did you get started in this industry? Tell me that story.
I kind of joke that I was born into it because my dad started the business and I started working here before I actually really worked here, kind of as the mini janitor or doing some little service bureau products. I thought I wanted to be a special education teacher and volleyball coach. And that didn't, I kind of got in there and decided that I didn't mesh well with the government standards on education, and then didn't really know what I wanted to do, and thought I made the ultimate, whipping choice to go to work for my family. I thought, that's like, you just gave up. I cannot imagine what I would do other than this. But through what our company did, it started with metal plates to identify patient records or identify uh, billing and different things like that. And then it grew, that changed to plastic cards. And in healthcare, that was really a big deal to stamp your card when you had procedures done. Well, then it was like, okay, well, what if we put a picture on a card? And so people would tape a photo on the back of a plastic card. And then it was kind of like, well, this is, not really easy process to do. What can we do to try to literally print a photo on a card? And we became one of the first dealers for, at that time, data card in the country. And it just became part of my product line whenever I started selling. And through that, it's not gone away. And I've been doing this about 34 years. So I hear people say, oh, the card's going to go away. And I'm like, no, card just keeps getting reinvented. It's not going away. So that's kind of how I got into it. And through that, we've grown into a lot of school safety, which the ID parlays right into that, weapons detection, just different things along that line. And it's all, to me, that visual identity of who walks in the door is kind of our passion. One of our taglines is "We identify with you," and that's kind of how we got started.
Wow, I've never heard the history of the card explained like that. So you said, so there was metal plates.
I paid for my first car with this machine, and anybody that's been around for a long time knows what a graphic type is. It would type on these little metal plates. And it was like a typewriter, but it was really slow. And then you would imprint, you would stamp a 3-part form or with a carbon ribbon that information onto another form. So you think about it, people didn't have computers. People didn't have typewriters everywhere, normal typewriters. So I want to send a bill out, or I want to send a bulletin out from a church, or I want to do whatever. How do I keep that database? Well, I have all these little metal plates sitting in a drawer, and I pull out whoever I need to bill to, stamp it, and that's how my bill goes out. Well, then metal was kind of pricey, so they moved to plastic, and so it just kind of goes on from there.
And then it sounded like at some point people wanted photos on the card, and they were taping them.
I remember when I was in college.
To the back?
When I was in college, we laugh about this. My student ID was on a plastic card, and it had an embosser. An embosser would put the raised letters on the card, raised name, like what the old credit cards look like. So it had my social security number as my student ID number, which Lord knows why we're not all hacked 24/7. And then it had a Polaroid, had a device that would print 2 pictures or 3 pictures, I think. And then it would cut them out. One of them went in your student record, and one of them went taped to the back of your ID card. And that was my student ID. So,
oh, wow. That's hilarious. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I'm like a photo ID person. So
yeah, but it's crazy. I wish I still had that, because there's so many things wrong with that ID card. But the great thing was I got to sell that same college the first ID printer, which was black and white, manual, push one card through at a time. That was one of my first customers.
So what's the state of the card today?
From an ID side, I think to me, trying to get the biggest bang for your buck, how many applications can I tie into that card? Whether it's healthcare and I need to get in a med closet, pharmacy closet, or it's time and attendance, or it's access control, or it's parking and vending, or it's, whether it's a chip, mag stripe still kind of floating around, a barcode, whatever, prox, which is really outdated to me. But what technology can I put on a card to make the lives of my employees easier, accountability easier, and then truly accounting easier when it comes to payroll, food service, whatever? To me, that's what's happening. That card's more valuable than ever.
Yeah, and I guess there's you alluded to this earlier, there's a second line of thinking which says, or an opposing line of thinking, which says the card's going away.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to a critic of the physical card or the badge?
What are you going to do when you lose your phone or your phone dies? Same could be said what happens if you lose your wallet. I mean, I get it. But the great thing is we can put identity on a picture on a phone. BadgePass does a great job of doing that. They've got a mobile ID. The hard part is you have to have that application that makes that worth something. So everybody's like, oh, I want this. And I'm like, okay, great. Now what are you going to do with it? Oh, I don't know. Well, does your access control allow for it? Well, I'm not sure. Does your point of sale system allow for it? I don't know. Okay. What is involved to make sure that can't just be a screenshot? How do I make sure that that's a valid ID? I'm not saying that that's a negative. I think there's application for it. Like in the schools, what if we gave a mobile verified identity badge on their phone for parents who were coming to pick up their kids? I don't know if I need to issue a card to them, but if there's something that I can verify that they've been vetted and they're approved, then that would be okay. So I think there's a partnership there, but personally, I don't think a card's going to go away. You have a whole lot of people that will never use Apple Pay. Generations of people, so they still want their debit card. We sell to banks machines that put the information on their debit card and Visa card. We work with a company that makes gas cards for Valero, for one of the largest oil companies in the gas companies in the country. People still want that card. There's still that feeling of membership and of belonging and identity. And some people just don't trust their phone. And I think we're moving to that in some ways, but I still think that visual ID that can be turned off in access control, I just don't see that going away in my lifetime.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective for sure. One of the things I wanted to ask you was, if you weren't in the ID card business, the security business, what would you be doing? Like, if you had an alternate life, what would you be doing if you weren't doing this industry?
I'd be working at an adoption agency.
Really? Tell me more about that.
My daughter was born in Russia, and I went through that process, and I know the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the fact that you can take a child that is in a position of not being part of a family, and you don't really know what their future is, and you can blend them into a family and they become your own. And then you watch that child, aspire to what they want to be and succeed and find it. I mean, there's nothing more challenging than that to me. And so that's always been a passion. And yeah, that's what I'd be doing.
That's amazing. Yeah. We have a few people on our team, our founder, and you might know Tyler, who have both adopted multiple children into their family. Both have done foster care and adoption. And they actually worked with an organization, nonprofit called Isaiah 117 House.
Yeah, yes.
I'm not sure if you're familiar. Yeah,
I am. And they're our charity for our identification systems group event.
No way.
Coming up. Yeah, we're excited about that.
So Tyler and Tony and their wives helped bring an Isaiah 117 House here to Lynchburg, Virginia.
Fantastic.
So now there's a house here that's running, and they're still, I don't know if they're like involved in the day-to-day operations or anything. They're more launchers than they are managers. But they helped bring it here to the city. So that's definitely a passion on our team as well.
Well, I love kids in general, but there's just something, I remember walking into an orphanage and seeing this child that was just basically translucent because she'd been inside all the time and fearful, and watching her light up and start smiling and start learning and start doing and going. And, this little kid that had no opportunity at a year old is now an attorney in Oklahoma. And I think, every kid deserves that chance. So anything that we can do to foster that attitude of, you don't have to birth a child to be a family, I'm all about.
Yeah, it would be amazing if we had more people who adopted, these children who are born into these really difficult situations where they didn't choose to be
No,
born into some of these tough spots.
no.
So yeah, that's challenging for sure. And thank you for doing that.
Yeah,
We have a phrase around here where it's like, do for the one what you wish you could do for the many.
love
And
that.
I think that's a good principle, because you can't be everything to everybody, but there's probably a few people in your life that you can really care for in that way. So,
Well, or you can encourage someone else, or you can help financially. I always said if I won the lottery, I would love nothing more than to be a silent donator to folks that are trying to adopt, because it is a huge expense.
mhm,
Encourage people or just normalize it. That's one of the big things.
absolutely. So, shifting gears a little bit,
Mhm.
tell us more about Diamond Business Solutions. You've touched on it some, but tell me about the business and what sets you guys apart.
We've been in business almost 44 years. Um, I'll make a really short story. My dad worked for a Fortune 500 company. That company was approached by another company saying, we've got a product that's going to revolutionize the industry. The company my dad worked for sold printing presses and a dressograph, which was the metal stamping plate machines. Company came in, the guy said, I'm going to revolutionize it. The CEO said, never going to happen. The company that came in and talked to him was Xerox. There used to be a printing press in almost every church, every company, because it's not the only way you could duplicate. Xerox pretty well put these guys out of business. So my senior
Hmm.
year in high school, my dad had been with them since he was 18, lost his job. We're out here in the middle of prairie land, and he says, you know what? I can do this. So he started his own company upstairs at my parents' house, and it's grown to hang around for 43 years. So that's kind of how we got started, was necessity, probably. And a lot of folks in this part of the world that didn't have someone come out and take care of them and service and support them and maintain that relationship. And I think that's always stuck with us. We're not a big company, and I think that's one of our strongest assets, because we're small enough that we're agile and we can adapt to whatever the customer needs. We can be flexible. We we can really create and maintain relationships. And we've got customers that I've had for 30 plus years. I mean, I love that. I know them. I know their kids. I think that's important. The other part of it is we are really blessed to be able to work with some vendors that, if we have a project that's really big, that I'm not going to say is bigger than us, but we need some extra hands on, especially an access control type scenario. We have companies and vendors that we partner with, so we extend our reach, but we keep our overhead low. So we can
Hmm.
offer best price to customers, but still get them the best product and the best service. So I really think that's an asset to us. I used to always think we needed to be big and multi-state and, branch offices everywhere. And that's a perfect fit for some people. For us, it's not. And that's been our winning strategy all this time. So we do photo ID, anything on a plastic card, personalization. Like I said, we work with banks, we work with gas companies, we work with anybody, membership companies. Then that's kind of extended more into physical security. We do weapons detection with a company called Evolve. That's been a real blessing to us these last couple years. But again, even in that, when somebody walks into a building or walks into a school, how do you know they're supposed to be in there? To me, that ID is the first step of layered security. So everything we do still parlays back into identification and badging, and that's our bread and butter, and we love it.
So, if a company is looking to produce ID badges, design ID badge, anything with ID badges,
Mhm.
Diamond Business Solutions would be the company to work with. And
Absolutely.
do you work across the country as well?
With some products, we do. We have no
Hmm.
territories. In some of our vendors, and I do agree to this, there's territories that we work within, but I think that's not a bad thing, because I think you can be best taken care of by someone locally if you need a lot of hand holding, or you need help with the database, or you need help with this. In some cases, I think that's a best fit. In other cases, these people have been making IDs forever. They know what they're doing. They just need printer and supplies and, that kind of help along the way. Then we can work about anywhere. Within the ISG, our Identification Systems Group, we pretty well have the US and Canada covered. So if I have an opportunity in Mississippi, and I think BadgePass can probably take care of it better, I'm going to reach out to them and have them take care of it. Or California, I'm going to call Multicard and let them take care of it. But we've got these partnerships and relationships that have been around for 40 years that we can reach out and help take care of them and truly try to get the best fit for the customer.
That's awesome. I love the customer focus of like, hey, we want to serve the customer first, do what's best for them, even if it's missing out on some sort of opportunity. Like that says a lot about, your integrity and what your business is all about.
Well, I think number one, if you don't take care of the customer, they're going to leave you, and my dad always used to say, those are the guys that keep the lights on, you better take care of them. And I think we do a good job of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, 40 plus years in business, that says a lot. I mean, I don't care what you're doing, to have that type of longevity in a space says a ton about you, your father, the company. What are some of the principles, philosophies, the things that you guys have done to be successful over 40 plus years?
I think number one, it's our people. I may wear the title of president, but my right hand is my brother-in-law, Kyle Randall, who is our CTO. Being able to work with somebody that you've got that type of connection with, and you can say what's best for the people that work for us, what's best for our customers, what's best for our company, and no, nobody's trying to climb a ladder. We're trying to do what's best. I love that. And I really think my faith in the fact that you did the golden rule. You do how you want to be treated. That's how you need to treat people, and look beyond yourself. That to me is our fit. There's people that walk in and we go, I'm not the best fit for you, but I know somebody. And your pocketbook may take a little hit every once in a while, but you get it back tenfold. You've got positive references, or you've got repeat customers that come back, or somebody that they heard something about you from. That's what it's about, is you got to give back. We started a project this year that our employees pick companies, local charities that we want to share part of our earnings with. And we just started. We did our first one, and it's a group called the 100 Club here, and it supports first responders that have had accidents or financial issuances or need new equipment. And our guys got so behind that and so fired up. And it's like, that's what it's about. And I think that's the reason we're still in business.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's funny. I think there's some similarities between our companies. We do a similar thing. We don't promote it a lot, but we give a certain number of revenue to different missions that we believe in.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the Isaiah 117 house. Mm-hmm. There's another nonprofit here in town that we support. There's a ministry that helps plant churches in Africa that we're supporting. So but it's really we center them around what are the missions that our people really care about, because that's motivating. When it's a Friday and some customer has a problem, and you kind of remember, okay, there's something bigger. I'm going to serve this customer who's right in front of me, but there's something bigger that I'm working towards. It's funny you mentioned the golden rule. Mm-hmm. I have a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old, all boys.
Oh, love it.
It's a ton of fun. They're kind of crazy. I got a lot of boy energy, but it's a blast. And I'm constantly asking them, like, hey, what's the golden rule? Right? They're fighting about something like, tell me the golden rule. And Yeah, right. And it's funny. This morning, I was like, I need to be reminded of the golden rule. It's one of these truths that I think is easy to understand intellectually, but it's difficult to actually put it into practice and think of somebody else as more valuable, more important than yourself, and think about their interests. And I think that's something I will constantly be learning and coming back to. But it's so important, for relationships.
It's hugely important, and not trying to be political, but whether it's our political environment, whether it's your, you know, uh, what's happening overseas, whether it's homelessness, I don't care what it is. We all have to kind of check ourselves because our human nature is to go, I don't want to deal with that. But we have to go, okay, I do have to deal with it because it's not invisible and it's not going away. What do I need to do to make a situation better? Or I don't agree with what you think, but do I need to be negative and hurtful to you? I need to be kind and, accepting of who you are, whether I accept your beliefs or not. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it parlay, it's never going to go away. It is the timeless standard.
Yeah, and it I don't think it gets. I mean, maybe it'll get easier and easier to follow, but I think
Yeah.
as you grow and mature as a person, practicing the golden rule looks different in all these different contexts. So
Absolutely.
I have to keep learning how to put it into practice.
Yep.
So as you look to the future, what are you excited about?
I think in physical security, something I'm really wanting to learn more about are drones. It's
Okay.
crazy. There's a company here in Texas that puts drones in schools, and if there's an issue with an active shooter or whatnot, they can disperse those drones remotely and deter the shooter, or they can confuse him or do whatever. And I think that's brilliant. They can get there quicker than an enforcement officer can. What can we do to grow that? I think that's really cool, and something I want to learn more about. When it comes to badges, I think the fact that there's an organization, SIA, that just released new security standards and badges. And this is kind of geeky, but I love it because let's make that badge more valuable. Let's make it more secure. Let's make it look better. I mean, I hate a plain white badge. I'm just like, what are you thinking? That's just like give somebody the keys to the kingdom because they can go anywhere they want to in your company. But I'm excited about being a professional that can show somebody what those standards can do to their badge and how we can enhance what they're trying to do, and then work with them to try to bring as much technology as they can on that card. The great thing is, from your standpoint, it's going to involve a rebadge in a lot of cases or new badging for new employees. And then we bring something in that is going to make that process easier to them. I think the cloud in identity is revolutionized it. It's given it all new life. We're still going to have enterprise level solutions that are on a server and things like that. But I think what we can do from the cloud or through AI is going to revolutionize badging and make it easier, make it better, and make it, in a lot of cases, more affordable.
Yeah, it's really funny to me. Because we've been a cloud company since 2015, right?
Wow.
Like we've been cloud this whole time, or a cloud software as a service. And it's funny to see, other industries have really adopted cloud quickly.
Yeah.
And in the physical security industry, and I understand the benefits of hosting something on premise, but I think more and more people are getting comfortable with these cloud environments because there's still great security there. But there's also a ton of benefits that you can realize moving to the cloud. It enables new capabilities and new customer experiences that weren't possible before.
Well, in badging, you don't have to have a physical printer every location you need to create a badge anymore. And when you go to a school district that's got multiple campuses, that can be a godsend financially to them. I don't have 100 printers out there. Maybe I've got 25. and I can, print badges at certain locations within a cluster or remote at a headquarters or whatnot. So there's advantages to the consumer financially to be able to do that. And then from an IT perspective, it takes a lot of the load off of them in some cases. So I think it's a win-win.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I think that's how SaaS should be. It should be a lower cost, higher value solution to clients. That's what it ought to be. And going back to the SIA security or the standards for the badge,
yes,
I think another thing that the standards provides is just the validation of the badge in general. And there are these industry norms and ways in which you can be successful with the badge. These principles you should follow, to be successful with your badge. So I'm excited about that. Obviously, the photo piece of the badge is mentioned in that report and those standards. So obviously, I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah. So the visual identity piece. But when you think about rebadges, we talked about a little bit the overlooked complexity of those projects. What are some of the things that people miss or they overlook when they think about conducting a rebadge?
I think the time frame is tough. If I have a hospital with 2,000 employees and I'm going to do a rebadge, what time is it going to take to physically have 2,000 people come in my HR office and smile, capture, oh, I blinked, redo it, and then physically just capture the photo, much less print it. Then I've got to work with their schedules. Is somebody manning their position? Is that a night shift person and they've got to come in at 10 a.m.? Is that, it's not convenient for anybody the way it is right now. It can be a whole lot better. And that's part of the reason we're working together, is because we think there's a whole lot better way to do that. But I think just the process, and then you have to go in and clean out your database. That's really important. You got a lot of employees that are still not there. And if your software doesn't let you inactivate customers or employees when they leave, you've got people that haven't worked for you for 10 years that are still in your database. And there may be 10 cards out there from that person that always loses their card, unless your software goes in and replaces the previous card and turns it off, basically. So there's a lot of things like that I don't think you can do a rebadge with a internet vendor. I think you've got to have a partner that says, have you thought about this? Let's talk about what that's going to mean. Let's talk about what it's going to cost, and kind of work with you on that. And I think that's where people in the identification business have so much to offer. I mean, if you need to go out and price shop ribbon, if that's the most valuable thing in your process, I can't change that. But if you want a successful process and you want somebody that knows what they're doing, the people in this industry have done this repeatedly. And now I think with the SIA guidelines, not only am I going to make your process easier, I'm going to make your card better. Number one, there's things that you can do to make it look sharp. I mean, whether it's a geos background, or whether it's microprint, or whether it's working with the chip and us figuring out what we need to do with the keys for that chip to give you more value and more accessibility to applications with your card. There's so much that we can do that maybe your role at your hospital or school, that's not your area of expertise. So if you say, I want to be able to unlock this closet with medications in it, that's not what an HR person is going to know how to make happen. So if we can bring all the different brains together and make it work, and make sure your software can do it, and then make it easier for your people to get badged and get their photo captured, we just made that process a whole lot smoother. But if you say, it's been 5 years since we've had IDs done, we're going to do a reprint, and you think that's going to be a week-long process, it's not. It's going to take a lot longer than that. So what can we do to make what your vision is really kind of come through? And
Yeah, and stress test it against reality.
yeah,
Because I think of a good rebadging partner kind of like a good wedding planner.
exactly. Yeah.
There's all these details that have to get worked out, and the bride may want, you know, this or that, and the wedding planner comes in and says, hey, actually we don't have, you know, that's not going to work in the order of events for this night. So they're helping the bride and the groom realize their vision
Mhm.
for the wedding, and they're taking care of all these little details that often get missed. And so I actually wish, that's one of the things I wish we did, was get a wedding planner. We didn't have one. And we planned a wedding. We were planning it from a different state.
Oh, wow.
So there was some scrambling that we had to
Yeah.
do the week of. And, you know, I kind of wish I'm like, we should have just paid the money
Yeah.
and got the wedding planner and
Yeah.
had a, you know, more stress-free wedding. So there's a lot of value.
There is, and I'm
what
going
you
to
bring.
borrow that application you mentioned, because that's great visual there. You know, what was your stress level when you guys were trying to make those choices and make those decisions? And then did you really know what it was going to cost you? You wanted this, you wanted chocolate cake, she wanted vanilla cake, and you know, how do you come together? And then it's just a million different choices. But if you have somebody that's kind of your project manager and walks you through it, it's going to be a whole lot easier, and it takes some of the burden on stress off of you when there's someone that says, you know what, let me talk to IT and let's see what we need to do about it. Let me talk to your access control company and make sure that we're not going to, you know, we're not going to mess up your Cronus barcode, or we're not going to do something to cause issues with this design. So I think that you're exactly right. We are a wedding planner.
Yep. And the people, you know, the customer, they still have their day job.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's like, you have to do your job.
Mm-hmm.
Plus you have all this extra work that you have to do when it comes to a rebadge.
Yeah.
And so for however long that rebadge takes, I mean, it could be months and months and months, depending on how things work out, you are running very close to the red line.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times over the red line, and it puts you in a very stressful, difficult, you know, situation where you're burnt out pretty bad by the end.
Yeah.
And things get missed. You know, when you're not in the best headspace and you can't devote the time and the focus and the attention that you need to a big project like this, things get missed.
Well, you know, and one of the other things I see in that, Luke, is whether we know there's some companies, whether they're in convenience stores or I don't care what it is, that they've got multiple chains and they're regional and they're kind of outlying or remote, and it's such a hassle that they go, well, we're just not going to put photos on the badge anymore. And I'm like, I just cringe, because I could grab anybody's and walk in, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But if I walk in as an African American man on my ID badge, there's a problem. You know, visual identity is really important. So if we can make that easier for them, and again, going back to making your badge more valuable, then that's huge. If I can work with somebody 200 miles away to capture a photo on their phone, I'm not having to buy any additional equipment, and there's not a password and there's not a login, and they literally just use a secure link to capture a photo that makes my company badging more secure, that's a win. You know,
yeah.
So I think it's going to change not just healthcare, but I think in education, I think it's going to extend a whole lot further.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to working with you on is, obviously we specialize in capturing that ID photo and delivering it and creating that Amazon experience of ID photos just happen. They show up on the badge, they show up in the access control system. But the other piece is we need help managing the project. And I think that's where you come in, is you bring your rebadging expertise into the equation. We have the software to make the long pole in the tent, capturing that photo. That's what we've heard from customers is the hardest part of the rebadge is actually capturing the image.
Absolutely.
Because you're working with these global, sometimes global, definitely people working across state lines in some cases, and they have to drive in person to submit a photo, or they submit something remotely in an email or a Microsoft form, and it's not compliant. It doesn't have a good background. They got a bucket on their head. There's all sorts of things that can go wrong. So I think that's one thing I'm really excited about, is like what together we can bring to the table.
I was talking to a friend of mine who is a recruiter for a large hospital, and I was telling her about this, and she was like, I don't really get it. What's the big deal? And I'm like, your job is to get the best of the best and get them to come work for you. So you get the best of the best. You get this new cardiovascular surgeon that everybody wants, and you've done all the wrangling and all the benefits and all that. And then we're going to say, we're so glad you're here. I need you to drive about 20 miles to our HR office and stand in a line with all these other folks to get your photo captured. If nothing else, the docs at a hospital will love this because they don't want to deal with all this. So if you can make that process easier for your elite employees, which to me, all employees are elite, do it for everybody, and it makes your job that much easier. So I just think if you can get somebody's attention enough to understand what it is, they're like, well, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah. And especially with hospitals, you can get by at some of these smaller schools when you have 100 photos a year and you don't have a lot of throughput in the system. But when you start talking about we have to capture 30,000 photos this year, that exposes the inefficiencies in the system, and it breaks it.
Yeah.
And so at that high a volume, you really need something to centralize and streamline the whole photo capture workflow. So we're really excited.
Give your people choice.
Mm-hmm.
I can walk in and you've got the light so hot, I look like I have no melatonin in my skin whatsoever, or it's so dark. There's so much regulation, but if I can do where I'm comfortable, I can be at home, I can take my photo and I go, I don't like that. Clear, do again, and then submit it. You're giving me, to me, it's value. You're giving me value because I get to pick what I want to look like for the next 3-4 years on my ID badge. And so to me, that's kind of a benefit to your employees.
Yeah, exactly. And what we've seen is, especially in healthcare, a layered approach to that. So let's allow them to submit the photo remotely. But if they want to come in person, let's say they forget, people forget things, they don't see an email, that's totally fine. When they come in person, instead of waiting in line, there's a big QR code on the TV or on the wall that they can scan to log in and submit their photo and skip the line.
Love it.
So meeting them where they're at and trying to give them these off ramps that make it just easy. We just want it to be easy. We want it to be a good experience for people.
Yeah. It's your phone, it's your time, and it's your image. That's a pretty good deal to me.
Yeah. 100%. Well, we're definitely excited to be working together on these rebadge projects. Absolutely. And I got 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
So the first one is, if you could go back and talk to 18-year-old Charla, what piece of advice would you give her?
One of my favorite sayings is never place a period where God has placed a comma. And to me, that kind of means when you think you've got it all mapped out and this is how it's going to be, and this is, the 2 dogs and a white picket fence, and I'm going to be the head of this company, or I'm going to be a special education teacher, I'm going to be whatever. Sometimes there's a bigger, better plan, and you're not a failure when you first think this is what I want to be, and then you end up being this, because what I thought I wanted to be and what I ended up being are so far from each other, but I cannot imagine that life that I thought I wanted. I love what I'm doing. I love the way I got to be a mom. I love everything about it, so just take a breath and relax. It's a big, fat, hairy comma, but it's going to get better. and you're going to find what your value and what your light internally is, and it's going to be good.
I love that. It's great. Great, wise words. Do you have a book, movie, or podcast recommendation?
From humor standpoint, I've got stuck watching Not Gonna Lie by Kylie Kelsey, because she's hilarious. She gets a little colorful with her language, but she's raising 4 kiddos, little kids, and you hear the mom story, and then she's like, all of a sudden my husband's retired and now he's back home, and I'm like, now I have 5 children, I feel like, and she's just hilarious the way she talks. So that's a really funny podcast. Movie is more of a documentary, and it's really kind of random. It's called Chasing Sugar Man. It is about a guy named Rodrigue, who was a blues singer in Detroit way back in the 60s. And he never quite made it. He got signed by some people and they promised him money, but that's when a lot of times artists didn't get the money they were promised. And he couldn't make a living, so he went into construction. But there was a rumor that he shot himself on stage and he was dead, and he kind of got off the map. And crazy story enough, one of his albums made it to South Africa, and he became this cult sensation. He had more people bought his albums than they bought Elvis in South Africa. And the reason was his songs that were about the man and I'm not getting paid what I'm owed, and really resonated with the folks in South Africa that were living under apartheid at that time. And a guy wanted to find out what the true story was about him. So this record shop owner from South Africa comes to Detroit and finds out he's still alive. And he's still playing music. He's still working construction. And they fly into South Africa, and it is like, Jesus returned for the most part. I mean, it was, everybody couldn't wait to get there. And the people are crying, and because he spoke to their heart. And I think it's a really kind of cool story, that you don't know what impact you've left, even when you think you may not be in the spotlight. And your story can go on for years and years and years, but it's a really good story.
That's great. I've never heard that story.
Yeah, it's really cool.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Charlia, thank you so much for your time. I know you're busy. You got your business to run, but you took some time and spent it with me today. So I really appreciate it. And it was a joy to have you on the show today.
Luke, love working with you guys. Talk about ethic. Your team is golden when it comes to that. And we're excited about the future and working with you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you as well. We'll talk to you later.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.